I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on the Spotlight Network, we're diving into a thrilling sci-fi adventure that is packed with crime, action, and intergalactic intrigue. The name of the book, Oasis 4. It's written by one of my favorite writers, one of my favorite guests. His name is Dale Chamberlain, and he takes us to a strategically located space station caught in the crosshairs of criminals, smugglers, and a sinister slavery ring. With high-stake decisions and galaxy-altering consequences, this book is a must-read for science fans craving a gripping, action-packed journey. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank the team at Good River Print and Media for helping us put him in the spotlight today. And we ask viewers like you to support authors like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his amazing books. The links are below this interview. And be sure to download the Spotlight Network TV app streaming on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire TV. Dale, thanks so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Thank you for having me.
Wonderful to have you back on the show, my friend. Tell us what inspired you to write Oasis 4.
I wanted to write a short story, and I liked the first one so much. I said, well, I got room for a second one, and then it just kind of became its own animal. You know, it just one idea after another, and finally, I had a book that was almost 1,000 pages.
Yeah, amazing.
I might as well publish this thing.
Well, we're glad you did, because it is a thrilling journey captured within the pages of this book. Talk to us a little bit about creating the Oasis 4 space station.
Oh, the station itself, I first asked myself, what exactly was the purpose behind the station? But what would we do in space? You know, about the only thing I could think of would be, commerce between worlds, if worlds do indeed exist, different worlds. So you'd naturally have mineral extraction from different planets and asteroids and such. But in all this, you have to have a place where commerce can take place. So, about the only legitimate use for a space station would be just a place for commerce to happen. And I didn't want to create a world like Star Trek where the main goal is exploration. It just there's enough of that in science fiction.
Yeah, without a doubt. Talk to us a little bit about the station manager, Phil Ross, and the challenges he faces in maintaining order.
Well, that naturally, when you get a lot of people together in some place where there's a lot of money flowing, you're going to get an element that is looking to take advantage of that situation. But he's got one challenge after another, running a space station, dealing with aliens in different cultures. And, it's just one interesting thing after another with him.
Absolutely. If this were to be a movie, who would play Phil Ross?
Who would play Phil Ross?
Yeah.
But my first go-to would be Drew Carey.
Okay.
I mentioned that before. He's the guy I had in mind when I wrote the character. He says, this guy's kind of like Drew Carey.
Yeah.
And I think Drew Carey would be able to portray him pretty well.
Yeah. Absolutely. Drew Carey's such a great guy. I actually had the opportunity to tour Disneyland one time, or Disney World rather, with Drew Carey, and we had a blast. Just spent a whole day with him. He was such a gracious man, and such a humorous man, and such a kind man. It was a great time. So I vote for Drew Carey for Phil Ross as well. I think he'd be a great choice. The book explores the theme of justice in a lawless frontier. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, I guess it's like the American West. Law enforcement was days away, and you had to make your own justice as you saw fit in a lot of situations. So they're kind of stuck in that situation.
Yeah.
Anything that takes place on their space station, I mean, they're not part of any planetary system. So their rules are their rules.
Yeah.
And they're fair.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody that goes visits that station understands it, and they understand the consequences if they broke those rules.
Yeah.
So
When you look at other space sci-fi, from Battlestar Galactica to Star Trek to Star Wars to any other number of films, who do you think your greatest influences are?
oh, as far as that is concerned, probably Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
uh, Star Wars a little too fanciful, and I never did watch Babylon 5.
Right.
It's but there's a lot of science fiction from the 1950s that I enjoyed,
Mm-hmm.
or that I enjoy. I wasn't around in the 1950s, but I've got a collection of science fiction movies from the 50s
Yeah.
that I do enjoy, and that's kind of an influence too.
Yep. Absolutely. In your book, a criminal syndicate operates in the universe of Oasis 4. Tell us a little bit about that crime syndicate.
Uh, they operate pretty much the way the mafia is portrayed in movies. The modern mafia.
Mm-hmm.
It's an intergalactic syndicate. They have, it's like they have an understanding. This is what our territories are. This group runs this set of planets. This group runs that set of planets, and they cooperate with each other. And their goal is just to basically steal as much as they can. It's not only steal as much as they get, whatever what they can. What they do to other people, that's of no consequence. It's as long as it benefits themselves.
Mm.
That's their main drive.
Exactly. And the Oasis 4 is a prime target because of the galactic trading crossroads, right?
Well, yeah, it's just a focus point between worlds, and information and things occur that the station's involved with that they just simply can't ignore.
Yeah.
So, and when the different worlds get together to try to end a big part of this, the criminal syndicate, the slave trade, they have to use Oasis 4, the station, as a base of operations. Just because it's of its convenience.
Yeah. Absolutely. Technology plays a big role in the story's conflicts and solution. Tell us a little bit about the technology that we find in the book. Is it rooted in reality?
Oh, absolutely. You won't find transporters or magic boxes that give you food instantly. You do find on the ships and on the station, I call them suspended animation units. You could stick a loaf of bread in the suspended animation unit, and as long as it stayed powered, it would stay, the bread would stay fresh for years. It would just, bread and fruits and vegetables, things like that. That's about, the most science fiction-y thing that of the devices they have. That there's no laser guns or phasers. It's on the station, they can't use them. Or that they can't use firearms, so they're stuck with, I call them stun batons. They're basically a policeman's baton, but they have a stun feature in them. The couple of probes at the end of the baton, they just
Zap them with those.
after beating down the crim, they jam the baton in their ribs and pull the trigger, and down they go. Yeah. But you can't use a firearm on a space station because you start punching holes. Because basically you got problems, big problems.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. What was the most exciting scene for you to write in the book? Or what's your favorite scene that you wrote that when you looked at it, you're like, wow, I really like how that came out?
I don't know about exciting, but when the two bounty hunters, the alien bounty hunters, when they confront one of these syndicate bosses in his warehouse, and his minions get up to beat him up, and of course they know a martial art from their planet, and
Mhm.
these guys are rendered unconscious, but they're questioning of the syndicate boss. It is pretty brutal.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
I just I kind of enjoy when someone gets what's coming to them. You know,
I
I,
think that's part of the joy of fiction is that justice is often well served, where in reality it seems like people just get away with everything. But in
yes,
books,
particularly these days. Yeah, I
yeah,
agree.
without a doubt. Talk to us a little bit about how your background in aviation influenced how you wrote space and travel mechanics in the book.
Well, I've always had an interest in space. Um, and of course aviation, and then the two really they go hand in hand. If you look at the
Yeah.
way NASA does things, and these days Elon Musk, uh, I don't know, it just seems like a natural fit. I know the lingo or the jargon. I'm a private pilot, so I know how controllers and pilots talk to each other,
Mhm.
and that's something that when my book was first edited, the editor kept saying, "No, you got to add this word and that word. It's not a complete sentence." I said, "Have you ever heard an air traffic controller talk? They don't talk in complete sentences.
Yeah,
The proper English is not in their wheelhouse.
yeah,
And
absolutely,
try
absolutely.
to try to write that or and get that point across." Yeah, being my first editor, we had arguments.
I'm sure, I'm sure. But that's part of the beauty of the creative process, going back and forth with somebody who's familiar with your work and helps bring it to life and is a second set of eyes, like this works, that doesn't work. And even if you debate it, it's part of the fun. What do you think about all of the billionaires invested in space nowadays, like Musk and Jeff Bezos?
Oh, good for them. I kind of get the idea that Musk is his idea. I mean, he's got Tesla that the battery. That there's only so much rare earth. If he wants to power the planet with batteries in the future, we don't have enough material, in my opinion.
Right.
Not without scraping the planet flat with machines. So he's probably just a guess. I've never heard anything, but he's probably looking at asteroid mining.
Hmm.
There's asteroids in this solar system. If anybody can get the materials off of one, it's going to be him.
Yeah.
And I get the sneaking suspicion uh, that's that's his drive. That's what he's shooting for.
Right.
But maybe I just that's too fanciful. I don't
Yeah.
know.
And now they say within the next year or so, we're going to launch a rocket up to Mars. That's a huge accomplishment.
Yeah, I was reading some about that. That is huge. He was some about the way NASA was planning it. They were going to put something in orbit around Earth, and then when everything was ready and assembled, then they were going to blast it to Mars.
Right.
And he was talking, send it off from Earth, and it goes right to Mars. From the surface of the planet. So that's going to be interesting. He's doing some crazy things with rockets, and I
Yeah.
just having them land and on their tail.
Yeah.
Uh, I thought that was just 1950s science fiction or cartoons, and then he's doing it, and I'm like, holy cow, that's crazy. Uh,
Exactly.
it's
Exactly.
amazing,
They don't have to splash down in the ocean anymore. They can actually
right?
land right where they took off from, and it truly is amazing to watch it
I
happen.
thought this. I thought the space shuttle was a huge leap forward when they could land on actual wheels and
Right.
not rely on a parachute and the ocean to cushion their fall.
Right.
But yeah, what he's doing is just amazing.
It truly is. It truly is. And I think it's really going to advance it because you have more than NASA involved now. You have multiple companies, multiple areas of scientific inquiry. And I think the future is limitless, fortunately. And who knows, we might be colonizing Oasis 4 one day, right?
It could be. Yep.
Could be, without a doubt. Your book tackles a very sensitive topic as well, slavery. Talk to us about slavery in this futuristic setting.
It slavery has existed on Earth throughout our history in one form or another, and I think that's just. I think some people are just spring loaded to say, "Gee, it'd be really neat if I could get someone else to do my work for me."
Yeah.
And benefit if they're, if they're too weak to fight back, then they kind of deserve to be slaves. I think that's the attitude a lot of people have.
Yeah.
Um, I think if you look at at the attitude the South had, pre-Civil War, I think it was more, well, we're doing these folks a favor, feeding them, and all you got to do is do our work for us, and
Yeah.
then what? I imagine in some cases that was absolutely true.
Hmm.
They were probably way better off being slaves, but for the most part, no.
Right. Right.
That's
Yeah.
but I think just every culture has that that ugliness to it.
Yeah.
Uh, Gee, let's capture someone and force them to do our work.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, it's an ugly part of many, many different cultures, many, many different histories. And it's interesting to see it in the futuristic setting as well in Oasis 4. And like you said, as long as there are opportunistic people, things like that will happen, of course. Tell us about the kinds of allies and enemies that Phil Ross encounters during his journey.
Oh, well, the first two characters that he was at odds with were uh, they, they were actually law enforcement from a planet called Flask, and they were looking to capture some political dissidents that were making their way through the station. They were running,
Hmm.
and it turns out a couple stories later that these guys they get fired from their law enforcement job because their government changed. They changed their planet changed governments, but they also they become bounty hunters, and they also become very good friends with Phil Ross.
Hmm.
They even though that Phil Ross pulled the wool over their eyes, almost quite literally, on their first encounter. They
Yeah.
laughed it off and said, "Well, we got to do something else for a living," and they became two of my favorite characters. You
Hmm.
know, but there's some syndicate bosses that made their way to, or one of them made their way to the space station. And then throughout the book, Phil Ross, he says, "I'm going to throw you out an airlock," kind of half joking, "I'm going to throw this guy out an airlock." And his new son-in-law, when he meets his new son-in-law for the first time, and he's kind of shocked because he wasn't told his
Hmm.
daughter got married. He says, "I'm looking forward to telling you how much I treasure my daughter, and to show you the station. And I'm really proud of the space station, especially the airlocks.
Hmm.
Best airlocks in the galaxy. Well, one of the syndicate boss that made it to the station, they get cornered in an airlock, and they didn't feel like going to prison, so their only way out was to smash a window and get sucked out. And Phil Ross was like, that's pretty ugly.
Amazing, amazing. Great storytelling, great characters, no doubt. It makes it so real, so intriguing. Are you thinking about a sequel?
I'm working on one now. I
Okay.
I thought I was going to put the Oasis 4 story to bed, and I said, you know what? There's a couple of more stories here, and I'm working on one. It's uh, the original characters make cameo appearances, but uh,
Central
they're
character.
not they're not the central characters. The central characters are two guys that we kind of alluded to, or we met them in the first book, but was the if you remember the story where they built a racing
Mhm.
machine, and the guys that won, actually, their fathers, they're actually cousins, and their fathers own was Waltz Logistics, which is they have shuttles that shuttle cargo between worlds, and well, it's actually the slave trade kind of enters into this too, because a couple of slaves stole away on their shuttle,
Hmm.
and then they wind up in Oasis 4, and the cargo handlers are looking at the manifest going, what kind of machine uses biological components? So they pull the lids off the crates, and here these two escaped slaves.
Amazing.
And it gets more interesting from there.
Absolutely.
And I'm not done with this story, so I'm still trying to flesh out some of the. I'm going to try to keep this book under 300 pages.
Sounds good. Yeah, sounds good. Well, do you have a working title for it yet?
Thieves.
Thieves. Okay, good. Wonderful. Sounds great. What message do you hope readers take away from Oasis 4?
I don't know if there's any specific message. Just, gee, this story just feels good.
Yeah, just good, pure entertainment.
Yeah, it's just that's all it is, entertainment.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, it's truly entertaining. Lots of thrilling aspects to the story, no doubt. Talk to us about how you developed the political and economic dynamics of this universe that you created.
Well, the universal monetary unit is gold, and they and I don't get into which planet come up with the what's it's called a goner, and a goner is a gold an amount of gold that's just under an ounce. I think I calculated 14 ounces for makes a goner. So, and I don't know how much gold is worth in today's dollar, or how much a goner is worth in today's dollars. I kind of calculated it out a little bit, but that's the monetary unit they generally work on. It's either in goners or just straight barter.
Yeah.
This corn, there's a couple 60 tons of corn, and you give us so much steel. That's
right. Yeah. Amazing. Amazing. It's a interesting world you've created, no doubt. Where can readers find Oasis 4? And do you have a social media presence? Would you like readers to get in touch with you? Tell us about that.
DaleChamberlainBooks.com.
Okay.
And I've got an Instagram account. It's actually maintained by Good River Print. So I don't mess with it. But yeah, DaleChamberlainBooks.com. And and it's available in some bookstores. I had a phone call from a bookstore owner in London, England, and he wanted to buy was it 50 copies for he's got two, one in London and one in another city. I can't remember where. I thought, well, that's pretty neat. I never had that happen before. So I said, hey, go to DaleChamberlainBooks.com. And then I had Philip Parker from Good River Print follow up on it. Call the gentleman, and I haven't heard anything else from it, so I'll have to inquire about that. But hopefully, and we just they had a book fair in London. Yeah, and my book was featured, and it was at least on the shelf, and the new title section of the book fair. So
wonderful. That's exciting. That's all exciting stuff. And more excitement's coming down the road when you're done with the sequel. How long did it take you to write Oasis 4?
It was a couple years. I started before COVID, and I think it was it 2023 I published it. I got to look now. Time flies by. But there was a lot of things that occurred that I wrote about in the book. Like I mentioned, there a planet had a pandemic, and a year later, we go through COVID. And I said, look, I didn't plan that.
You predicted it, you didn't plan it, right?
I didn't even properly predict it, I don't think. Right. But
exactly.
That happens.
Amazing. Have you been following these astronauts who have basically been stranded on the space station for
I was going to make a point to if you go on YouTube, they had the NASA Live, and they had a countdown. The hatch is going to close, and it was, when I looked at it, it was like 35 minutes. I said, well, 35 minutes, I have to look at that, then watch that happen. And I got distracted, and I went back to that feed, and there was nothing really interesting to watch. They were deorbiting the Dragon. When I said, well, it's going to be early morning when it's flat. I don't know what time they splash down. They call it splash down. I'm not sure if that spaceship splashes down or not. I'm actually not sure. I wanted to watch
I'm
it.
not sure either. Yeah. Amazing. Amazing. Can you
Maybe,
imagine though going up to space for what they say is going to be like a 10-day mission and you wind up spending 9 months?
yeah. I hope they packed extra underdrawers, and socks.
Exactly.
Oh man, that would suck.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. Well, more things for you to think about, more adventures await. I got a feeling beyond the sequel, there'll be another book. I think there's a lot of story to tell here with the adventures in outer space. Your imagination's very, very strong, and you've done a great job with this book. I can't wait for the sequel. The book we've been focusing on today, folks, is called Oasis 4. It's written by a terrific author, one of my favorite guests, Dale Chamberlain. He takes us to a strategically located space station that is caught in the crosshairs of criminals, smugglers, and a sinister slavery ring. With high stakes decisions and galaxy altering consequences, this book is a must read for sci fi fans craving a gripping, action packed journey. Dale, thanks so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Thanks for having me.
Such a great time talking to you, as always. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.